Hebrews chapter 10, in the 10th chapter of the book of Hebrews, and there's verse 31 and concluding at verse 39. I have been spending time giving thought to the fact that when God is not working on things, he's working on us. And when he deals with the book of Hebrews, what he says essentially is that Jesus is the best. It doesn't matter what else you have or who else you have related to in terms of your religious beliefs. What the writer of Hebrews is saying is that Jesus is the very best. So the book of Hebrews deals with the superiority of Jesus Christ. And when you understand that, you grasp the fact that he's better than Moses, he's better than the angels, he's better than Aaron, he's better than any system of religion that you can find. And it's interesting that he declares, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he points out that no man comes to the Father but by me. It's incredible. I don't know if you've read the book, but there is a book that says he's either God guru or ghost. That's one book. Another book says he's either liar, lunatic, or he's telling the truth. Because nobody makes the claims that Jesus makes. And when you understand religion in any conceptualization, you have to admit that he makes claims that nobody else makes. And that is, no man comes to the Father but by me, because I'm superior to everyone and everything. So the Hebrew book is written so that all the backsliders, or all those who are in apostasy, would change their direction and come back to Christ. And so he picks up now in chapter 10, and he starts with a warning. In chapter 10:31, he says, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God, but call to remembrance the former day in which, after you were illuminated, you endured a great flight of afflictions, partly whilst you were made a gazing stock, both by approaches and afflictions, and partly while you became companions of them that were so used. For you had compassion of me in my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourself that you have in heaven a better and enduring substance. Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. For you have need of patience, that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. Now the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul. I want you to look at somebody with all the ebullience you can find and just tell them, hold out. Amen. Look at somebody else and say, don't draw back. It's incredible that the things you believe for so strongly in the beginning, and sometimes we're convinced that they will come to pass. I don't know about you, but there were some things that I have just believed emphatically and intensely. But somehow, as time passes, there are certain questions that arise. One of the questions we ask ourselves, and because we can't really make any contradistinctive statements about God, we end up feeling self-condemnation, because oftentimes we say if God said it and it didn't come to pass the way we wanted it to come to pass, we would actually begin to question whether or not God said it. I don't know, have you prayed for something and you didn't get it as quickly as you thought you would? And then you begin to ask yourself, is this really of God? Because as time began to pass and the thing didn't come to pass, and because we don't question God or we don't argue that maybe God is the reason why it didn't come to pass, the first thing we go is into self-condemnation. And then because the pulpit, and we do it to you, I mean, we seriously do it to you, and that is, you call for the elders of the church to pray for you, and the elders of the church come, and you don't get healed, and the elders of the church say, well, you didn't have any faith. But obviously, your faith was in calling for the elder of the church, because that's what the Bible said for you to do. So you call for the elder of the church, and he comes, and you don't get healed, and then he turns around and blames your faith. So oftentimes, the pulpit has become very, very significant in our psychological debilitation, because we do what the Bible says, but somebody has to find a reason or put blame on somebody else. So constantly we are debilitated and we feel as if God has not responded to us because something is wrong with us. The second thing is we oftentimes feel as if we're not worthy. And maybe because he promised us something and we didn't live up to what he said, we believe that I'm guilty of something, so God has not responded to me. And many times, instead of the church eliminating guilt, we place guilt, and people feel less significant because of what it is that they have to face. But I've come to understand something, that oftentimes it's not because we have too little faith. It's not because we're guilty of anything. Take a look at the person beside you. Just look at the person beside you. They look real holy, don't they? But I promise you that everybody in here has a problem. Amen. As sanctified as they look, everybody is struggling with something. So at the end of the day, the gift of God is not based on your worthiness, because there's much that he has given, and this has been my statement for the last 3 weeks, and that is that it's not what you have achieved, it's simply what you have received. And that's what grace is all about. It has nothing to do with how worthy you are. It has nothing to do with how superior or how great you are. And so you can't go to God really and ask God for anything based on your worthiness. You can simply go to God and ask him about his grace, because we have received grace and we stand in grace. The fact that things did not come to pass as soon as I thought they should often leaves me doubting my relationship with God. And it makes me feel as if I'm not good enough, or I don't have enough faith, and I'm totally culpable of whatever it is that I have not received. But I have found out that it's not a matter of being wrong or right. It's simply a matter of being patient. And that is that not now does not mean never. It just simply means that maybe I ought to hold out until God builds who I am, until he brings to pass what he says. Now, the Hebrews concept of patience, and if I may take my time, time is just about up, but if I may take my time, patience is immersed in their etymological responses, because we have to analyze words in order to understand thoughts, because everybody in here thinks in words. There is nobody here who thinks and you don't think in words. I don't know if you can think deeply if you don't have enough etymology to understand that what it is that you're thinking. But the words for patience in the Old Testament, there's one that is erect, and it means to make long or to prolong. It's associated with long life, and what it suggests is if you knew that you had long to live, why would you be impatient? Because if you realize that, well, I'm going to live for 900 years, what would you be impatient about? Impatience comes because we feel as if we got to hurry up and get things done. When I was growing up, it was told, you got to hurry up, man, and live your life. And one thing I asked God to do, I said, now, Lord, don't come until I get married, because I want to be married to enjoy a woman legally. So don't come until I get married. You got to understand the significance of that, and that is that all of us are in a hurry because we've been taught that life is not that long, and you've got to enjoy life quickly. Now, the Hebrews had the word erect, and what it said is, if you've got a long time to live, what would you be impatient about? And what God is saying is, when I make you promises, I will give you long life in order to get to the end of the promise. Rollo May, in the book The Meaning of Anxiety, he says, and I quote, the omnipresence of anxiety is our human awareness of the fact that each of us is a being confronted with non-being. Non-being is that which would destroy being, such as death, severe illness, personal hostility, to sudden, which destroys our psychological rooted, unquote. Anxiety then is propelled by our fear of our own death. And because we see death coming, we become very anxious about what it is we need to do and what it is we need to achieve. So here is God saying to each one of us that you need to slow down and relax, because if I make you a promise, I will bring it to pass, and there's nothing you can do to accelerate what I have promised to do for you. So what I've concluded is that God is saying to me, whatever I'm going to bring you, I've got to develop you in order to get it, so that when you get it, you will not lose it. So I have to work on you to make you strong enough so that when you receive my blessing, you will not walk away from it. A friend of mine told me years ago, and I believe it more now than ever before, that there are certain things that God has to keep from us until we are developed enough to receive it. He said to me, had I received what I have now at an earlier age, I would have lost all of it because I wasn't mature enough to handle it. And so sometimes then God brings you through certain things in order to get you to a place that when the real blessing comes, you can handle what it is that he has given. I feel like preaching now. Now most of us think the quicker the better, but I believe that sometimes the slower the better, because he develops me to a place where I can appreciate what it is that he has given me. Many of us, can I just tell it like I feel it, is that sometimes the second marriage is better than the first marriage, because in the first marriage you weren't mature enough to handle the gift that God gave. So now after you've gone through a whole lot of stuff, now you're able to appreciate something that God releases in your care. I don't want to mess with you on this one. You see, if you've been through nothing, you need a bouquet of flowers. But if you've been to hell and back, you can be happy with a petal. I don't have to have a bouquet to get happy, because God has put me through enough that if he just gives me a pedal, I'll rejoice. I don't have to have a big car. I just have to have a car. I don't have to have a big house. I just have to have a house, because if I've been through enough, I can give God praise for less. The anxiety here sees every situation then as a threat. But what faith does, it sees the situation as an opportunity to see God. And I believe that becomes the substratum of my walk with God. And it's simply that whenever I have an experience or a situation, I'm asking God to show up. If you will show up, then I will be happy, because all I need to do is see you. I think that most of us have employed God for now, but what God has done is he's moved us for then, because in 70 years or 100 years, all of us are out of here. So what God is doing is saying, I'm using your life to get you ready for me. So a little while and I will show up, because I'm not here simply to make your life better on earth, because you'll never have heaven on earth. And what we have done is we have aborted the eternal process of God and made God simply a God of right now. But God is using right now to fix us for the future. And it doesn't matter really what you have right now, as long as when he comes, you'll be ready to go with him. And so he says waiting as opposed to worrying. I don't need to worry, I just need to wait, because whatever he has promised me will come to pass. So now I've got faith as opposed to anxiety. I've got God as opposed to man. The next word the Hebrews used was hill, and it means whirling in circulation or a motion, and it's used for labor pains. And what it suggests now is inner mental anguish, the type as of a woman with a child, and the agony suggests as one in labor. But the truth is that once the baby is born, the pain is gone. And what God said is, you look for the ultimate of the pain being gone by what I have delivered. Many times when we're impregnated with ideas, we don't want to wait until the fulfillment of the time comes. We want to get it over with quickly. And what God is saying to you and to me is, if you can just hold out just a little longer, I will bring it to pass. Give somebody a high five. I'm almost there, Pat. Give somebody a high five and say, neighbor, why would you abort what God has put in your spirit? Because if you just hold out a little longer, you don't have to settle for less when God is preparing the best. I'm almost through. Many times we have come to the place where we decided that we take it into our own hands. And I often see, based on the word of God, that God does not have to deal with what you call feral. God does not have to deal with what you call that is fertile. God can operate in barren soil and give you what he wants, because he wants to prove to you that it's him. I have said oftentimes, and I have put it in the word, that everybody ought to sow into fertile soil. But I discovered something, that when God is in the operation, it doesn't matter what the soil is. I think I told you before, I'll tell you again, that God wanted Abraham to seed into Sarah. And if he's seeding into Sarah, Sarah is barren. Hagar is not barren, but God did did not give him the promise of the fertile woman. He gave him the promise of the barren woman. When God is operating, you don't have to have the right kind of soil, because God will move in any soil to prove that this is him. He's declaring to them that you got to hold out, that you can't back up and go into any other thing, because I'm the best that you can ever have. And if I'm the best that you can ever have, then understand that I am the power that makes things happen. I think that every now and then we ought to give God praise, because he takes the circumstances out of our hands, and he says, if you can hold out, I will bring it to pass. I feel, give somebody a high five and say, you got to hold out. You can't settle for less than what God has promised you. I'm about to close, but let me tell you this. When God makes a promise, and when he declares that I'm going to bless you, then oftentimes we abort the promise because we try to help God. God needs no help from any one of us. When he makes a promise, he will bring it to pass. And if he decides you gotta wait, then you just gotta wait on the Lord. And I will tell you, you can wait two ways. You can wait either complaining, or you can wait praising. And I just found out that if I got to wait, I need to wait lifting up the name of God. And if I got to wait, I got to wait giving God the glory, because the glory belongs to God, because I'm going to bring it to pass. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like lifting up the name of the Lord. And I might not be preaching to you, but I'm preaching to myself. And that is, I'm going to wait until the healing comes, and I'm going to wait until he brings it to pass. I feel like lifting him up. I feel like giving God the glory. I feel like praising God. Shake somebody's hand and say, neighbor, I've got to give God the glory, because weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. I will not look back. I will not turn back, because I heard Jesus say, if you take your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not worthy of me. Because I need somebody that'll hold out to see what the end is going to be, and hold out. Give somebody a high five. Said, I've been to hell and back, but I'm holding out, for the victory shall be mine in a little while, and he that will come shall come, and the victory is already yours. I just believe that this is the year, and God has enough time in this year to make this year the best year of my life. And I'm telling God, in 2015 I'm expecting a miracle, and I'm expecting a change. I'm sick and tired. Shake somebody's hand like you're gonna shake it off, and say, neighbor, I'm sick and tired of settling for less than what God has promised me. I'm sick and tired of crying for stuff that's less than what God has. I'm sick and tired of chasing less when I can sit and wait for the best, because I'm not doing it. It's God that's doing it for me. And I just rose to tell you, this is your time. This is your day. And if you can just just hold out. Hold out till the marriage gets better. Hold out till the gift God promised you comes to you. Hold out until the finance moves to another level. Hold out. Do I have some folk in here that trust God enough to say, for God I'll live and for God I'll die, but I will hold out. Give somebody a high five. Say, I'm not a quitter, I'm a believer, and if I believe, it's got to come to pass. If I believe, it's got to happen, because if God promised it, feel the Holy Ghost in here. I feel, shake somebody's hand for the second to the last time and say, neighbor, I'm a believer that God will do what he says. And if he's Jehovah Jireh, if he's Jehovah Nisi, if he's Jehovah Makadesh, if he's Jehovah Rapha and Jehovah Rophika, then I can hold out. Ain't no doctor gonna cut me. I'm holding out. Give somebody a high five for the last time and say, neighbor, hold out. The best is yet to come, and I'm excited about your future, but you gotta no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Oh. I'm closing, and I'm closing one time. Sometimes I close 2 or 3 times. I'm closing one time. You don't know sometimes what it takes just to get in the house. Sometimes people expect you to be jubilant, expect you to fall out, but you don't know the victory that comes from just getting in the house. So the person beside you might not seem as happy as you are, but they didn't have the struggle. You didn't have the struggle, rather, that they had just to get in the house. And sometimes, and preachers, you'll find this out, that sometimes people expect you to perform and expect you to be on the top of your game, but they don't realize that oftentimes you're blessing them when you're hurting yourself. Sometimes nobody understands. That's why you got to hold out. You got to hold out because there are times when you're never appreciated. And people will depreciate you while you're blessing them. And God help you if while you're trying to bless somebody, somebody's trying to take your place. And so instead of giving strength, they exploit weakness. I remember reading, and I'm closing for the second time, where God tells the Chaldeans and the Babylonians, I'm going to destroy you because you went after Israel in her weakness. And you tried to hurt her in her weakness. And I want to say to somebody here, somebody's coming back to find you in your weakness. But what God said is, I'm going to turn that weakness into strength. And he says, I'm going to destroy you because even though they were vulnerable, they were still my children. And instead of you exploiting their vulnerability, you should have gave them support. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to destroy you because you attacked them in their weakness. And I'm going to strengthen them. So when the next enemy comes looking for depression, they're going to find joy. And when they come looking for weakness, they're going to find strength. And when they're coming looking for failure, they're going to find victory. And you look them in the face and tell them, I'm not what I was last year. So you can get out of my face because God has delivered me from you. God's calling somebody, and he's reaching for somebody, and he's saying, come to me and I will give you rest. And if you have to